Welcome to the Growth and Banter podcast. My name is Blake McCullough, CEO and founder of GMS Media Group, one of Australia's leading creative digital advertising agencies. This podcast is for any business owner or aspiring business owner looking to learn the insights and strategies to navigate today's complex digital landscape. Today, we're joined by Sasha Karabut from eCommerce Capital, and he's going to let you know the strategies in order if you want to start your e-commerce business in the next 90 days. There's heaps of gold nuggets I'm sure you'll enjoy. Welcome, Sasha.
Thank you.
I've got the privilege of seeing you twice in 2 days.
Yes, unusual, isn't it?
It is unusual. Back in Sydney on a scorching hot day, but in Queensland, I'm sure you get hotter days.
I was going to say not in comparison to the Gold Coast. But
yes, no, not at all.
It's still pretty warm.
But I want to jump into it and talk about how we first met, the evolution since then. But before we do, rewind the clock and. We got introduced by one of my former bosses, Greg Klopper, who also we had the privilege of seeing last night.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, if you're listening. Going through what was quite a significant project for yourself and also for us with the Jordan Belfort tour of 2020, I believe it was. I think we engaged in 2019.
Yeah.
And, the sort of twists and turns that project sort of unfolded. Let's maybe touch on that and sort of walk through how we sort of went through that process of helping you on that tour. The pros and cons, the highs and lows, and the twists and turns, and everything in between.
Well, I think that you guys kind of came in as like Superman, to be honest, because I kind of went over to Jordan, Jordan's mastermind, and spent like a weekend with him, outlaid a fair bit of cash to do that just because I was like, I wanted to improve and develop my sales skills. And I was like, I just learned and consumed a lot of his content. I really resonated with some of the key ways that he describes and articulates like sales methodologies. And so I was like, this seems like a good thing to do, right? And I had been speaking to my wife a lot beforehand, and I was like, I want to level up my circle. I want to get around bigger players, and then got this opportunity to do it. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. So I think it was about, 35 grand or something for the weekend. And I remember going there, and Jordan probably just saw it like young kid, massive ambition, huge ego, and easy opportunity to kind of pump a lot of wind into my sails with this idea of we're running this event together. So I remember being there at his house, and he was like, hey, I've got this idea, come here, kid, let me take you under my wing. I'm going to look after you. I'd love to run an event with you. We'll put you on the map. We'll blow you up. It'll be easy. It'll be massive. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is it. This is going to be insane.
The wolf himself.
Right. and so we filmed all this content together over in the US, and came home, and I'm like, this is my ticket to stardom and
to
celebrity,
paradise
right?
and freedom.
Everything's going to be easy. And so, but at that time, I had business wise, just to set the scene, I had my automotive repair business, which was zero digital, no marketing, no, it was all face to face, door to door, being in person, repairing cars, moving around city to city, and doing that kind of a work. And I had just started an online kind of coaching business, because I had a lot of people asking me, how did you transform your life, and how did you go from a degenerate to making money and stuff. And so I had this little coaching program, and that was about it. That was the extent of my knowledge. I had one VA in the Philippines, and I just was like, okay, so now I'm going to do these 2 events with around about 2,500 people in 2 different cities. No idea about events, no idea about what it costs, no database, no list, no marketing experience, no knowledge, nothing, literally. And I was like, yes, say yes and figure the rest out later. And
jump off a cliff and build the plan on the way down.
Dude, it was wild. And I remember thinking about it, and I mapped it out on a whiteboard, as I think every good entrepreneur does, thinking the money I was going to make. And at that time, because I had no knowledge, I'm like, all the money is going to be on ticket sales. I was like, I didn't even know the commercial aspect of the event. I didn't even know. I was like, no. I was like, you just sell tickets. And I remember, I specifically remember doing it, mapping it out on a whiteboard, and being like, 50,000 on Facebook ads, that's that's huge amounts of money, massive amounts of money. And I think we spent like 4 times that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a couple hundred.
It was like just, I think it was just shy of 200 grand. And there was one of my close friends that I was working with at the time, and I showed him the plan and the map, and I pitched him on the idea of, I'm like, bro, this is a money maker. Like, come in on this thing with me. You can be part of this event. We'll make heaps of money. We'll split the profits. And he kind of actually pitched in some money to actually fund some of the event, just because I was like, I want to be over secured on like leverage, and I want to have more than enough funds to make sure we see this thing through.
You're essentially going all in.
Yeah, massively. And I remember we set a launch date, which initially was like September 2019.
Yeah.
I launched with this other agency, and we put together like this random like landing page that I was like, well, I think that's good, right? And
they were random.
It was like, yeah, you're killing the story. And then we launched, and I remember like I was in my mind, I'm like, this is gonna sell out in like weeks. I'm like, this guy's like celebrity. I'm like, this is honestly the moment it drops. And it's funny because like me listening to what I'm saying right now is like, you fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't sell any tickets. Like, so we started spending money on ads. No tickets were selling, and I was like, what have I fucking done?
Yeah, wow.
And I remember I spoke to Greg, and I called like all of the people from like Success Resources, and I'm like, what should I do? Sign this contract. I paid this guy about 200 grand. By that time, I think I paid Jordan about 200 grand, half of what was actually the agreement. And I was like,
so you're already up for
I'm
half
in
a
on
million.
this.
Yeah.
Like I'm in, you know what I mean? I'm like, what do I do? And like, this event is like now in like 9 weeks time, I've sold a total of 4 tickets. Right, I need to fulfill another like 2,000 plus tickets. What the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
You know, and I remember Greg specifically. He was like walking through the airport or something, and you know how he's like crazy stoic, like you can't tell what he's thinking. Asked me about like 15 questions about like this, what's that, how much you paid this, what's going on here, and I was like, please help me, please help me. And
Just give me the answers.
Literally, and he was like, all right, I'll talk to you later. Hung up on me, and I was like, I actually, it was just like, fuck do I do? And he ended up kind of like just advising a little bit through it. We engaged with you guys. You came in, we rebuilt all of the landing pages, all the assets. I pushed back the date of the event from September until February 2020, right before COVID happened. And
yeah, wow, I don't even realize that.
No.
Imagine throwing that into the mix.
Literally.
Wow.
Well, that screwed up my fulfillment events on the back end, but
of course.
The actual event itself. And then anyway, yeah, so we launched with you guys, and it just immediately started kicking off in a very, very positive direction. I saw some trajectory. There was so many ups and downs as part of that process, simply because of like no knowledge. Like I just did not know. Like I didn't know how to track purchases. I didn't know how to track like how many ticket sales we did. It was just like everything until the last minute was just mad chaos. But the event was a massive success. You know, like I remember Jordan said to me during the event, he's like, mate, I've been to a lot of events, but you know, this is probably one of the best run events I've ever been to. And I was like, wow, I'm like, that's really nice of you.
Yeah. So, and like, I mean, firstly, it was really cool to join the journey with you on that one, you know, and see the turnout and, you know, be around someone like Jordan Belfort, you know, and, you know, the movie, I don't know if surely everyone's watched it.
Yeah.
It's easily one of the best ever.
Yeah.
But I think like having done that at that level, your first-ish go at such a high-scale event, one, that's phenomenal. Two, that takes balls.
Yeah.
And like there's a silver lining, even if you don't make ROI out of that first thing, you know, where it's running a business or doing your first event, pretty rare to really make solid ROI on your first go, irrespective of who it's with. What do you feel has been the biggest breakthrough through that experience and since for today? Because like you said, like, you know, your knowledge was not quite there from a marketing and online point of view. And we'll go into what we're doing today because you're an absolute professional right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was the biggest breakthrough or learning?
I think it's kind of what you said, and I probably listened to this like some years later when I heard like Ray Dalio say something to the effect of like, if you want to be really successful, without wiping out, fail as much and as often as you can. You know what I mean? Like that those moments and those times where you're in the crux of failure and you're up against like tremendous amounts of adversity, like those are the times that you really actually learn. And it takes a lot of courage. I think it takes, for me, it took just like naivete. Like I just didn't know. Like I just straight up didn't know. And I was like, how bad can it be? You know? And then I think what I did maybe luckily, or like I've got a really, really, really intense like work ethic. And once I commit on things, I'm like a dog on a bone, you know what I mean? I just very rarely like let go, which also sometimes has its downsides. But in this situation, it was like me, I did not know. Like I physically was like, I didn't know the alphabet goes A, B, C, D, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, it goes from A directly to like Y. And I was like, that's it. I didn't know there was like literally like 23, 24 other steps that I needed to take. So I think that was probably the biggest credit. And I even look at like companies that apply that same kind of like naivete principle, and they innovate in that sense. They come into an industry, they look at what these big, you know, archaic giants are doing, and they're like, well, fuck are you doing it that way for? Why don't you just do this? And they just do it because they don't know all the like steps that every other company's taken, and it works. You know what I mean? So I think it taught me that like by design, taught me, I guess, my limit somewhat in terms of like how hard I could push it.
Risk limit?
Yeah, risk limit, like capacity. I tested my relationship a lot. Tested my capacity in terms of like budget, as far as like investing capital. Like there was a lot of things that really, really, really pushed. But I remember at the end of it, like sitting back and just being like, I didn't even know how to appreciate it, because so much had happened in such a small amount of time. And I was like, what do you even do now?
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'd spent like 6-7 months of my life, like not doing anything but this.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very unique experience, like very unique. I would have done things very differently had I had the opportunity to, but I think, those are probably some of the biggest learnings from it, is that just like saying yes and figuring the rest out later, I think is something that teaches a lot of like startup entrepreneurs more than any like book or any audio or any like thing you can try and like theorize. It's just like fucking commit.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's like learn by trial and error, not by theory. And like I said, you know, and I think myself, I've grown as well through business, and, you know, you're doing it on a quite a grand scale right now, and we'll go into that a little bit. But, you know, going from the coaching event space, which is a very grueling, tough industry. Yeah. You know, that's where I sort of learned direct response marketing before starting the agency, which, you know, made us obviously connect. But, you know, going from the coaching and event space to now being an industry leader in e-commerce education, and not only that, but having, you know, your own e-commerce stores, which we collaborate on. Yeah. You know, what do you feel like? How do you feel that shift's been? Like, what made the decision go from, okay, I'm going to start going into e-commerce and products from coaching and events, and really nail this market? Not only that, but then start educating others on how to do it. You know, within 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So I think one thing that if I reflect on some of the like mindset shifts or the awarenesses that I've had like through various like progressions in my life. So like when I was like in construction, I was like broke, and I had massive amounts of debt, and I was just like, I've got all this debt, and I'm like, I restructured all this debt, and I was like, you're going to be like nearly 40 years old by the time you pay it off if you continue doing this same thing. So I think I had like, I don't know where exactly it came from, maybe like some childhood trauma or something, but something or rather like I had this awareness to see like what you're doing is not working. You know what I'm saying? And then I shifted into that hail damage repair industry, where it was like a lot more earning potential, but it was like very much directly associated with like hours that you work and location. And so I was like, okay, so this is good, but I'm like, there's the limit. So I had that kind of awareness to see that. And then I did like in the online space, and the online space was like, okay, so Jordan Belfort events. I'm like, whoa, this is big scale. But then I was like, I observed going through that, and I experienced it as far as like my bank account experienced it. I was like, this is really, really, really intense. And I'm the one bearing all the risk the whole time for this like 1 to 2 day period where you potentially make it back. I'm like, this is probably a really intense type of gambling. Yeah, that's it. You put all this money in, you've got that day to make it back. It's high risk stuff. Super high risk. And so I didn't really like that. And then I was like, okay, I want more consistency. I want more stability. I want more predictability. And so it just gradually kind of shifted and evolved into what I'm doing now in terms of looking for a model or a design that was like, again, more predictable, more consistent. And I could just get better results on for a more consistent period of time. I think that was the shift that I realized, that especially going through like the events and then the other kind of periods in my life where I changed. Yeah. And that's the silver lining, right? You've gone through that diversity, and then you've gone, okay, I don't like that form of model from a business point of view because that's risky, into something that's a bit more sustainable. And you've gone out there and learnt the skills, and obviously you would have taken a tremendous amount from that initial event and events after that to take into what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But for listeners who don't know, maybe talk through like what e-commerce capital does, and sort of the people you help to sort of bootstrap and start e-commerce brands and sort of the strategies around it.
Yes, what we do is eCom Capital helps either generally we tend to get the best kind of results with people who are like in a 9 to 5, who are like perhaps in like a professional kind of situation, maybe like a little bit of like business acumen as far as like a general understanding of like is some simple kind of basics of business, and help them to build and scale like a profitable e-commerce brand. So we don't do any drop shipping. We don't do any kind of like fly by night like trending products. It's all really associated with helping people to source like high quality products, build brands that solve problems for customers, and then do it in a way where they can like sell those customers predictably, consistently, repeatable kind of business models. For them, creates lifestyle, creates freedom, creates like really, really good kind of brand equity for them as well. So that's in essence what we do. And I have a pretty awesome team now that are super aligned with the mission and vision, and we're kind of expanding Australia-wide as well as internationally. Just to, I think the space has copped it pretty hard in terms of all these like fake gurus that have sold you the drop shipping dream with their Lambos, etc. And so I hear it a lot, and we get it a lot through all of the people that come through, that they're just like, I love the transparency. I love what you guys do. Your team really freaking care. Like, you're in Australia, you're based down here. Like, you really give a shit, you know? And that's kind of the message that I want to get across to people, is that like, it's possible. And if you do it the right way, it is hard, but it's damn worth it.
Yeah.
You know? So,
and you're getting a huge amount of traction with it. You know, you're getting a lot of customers sign on, and you're absolutely killing it from, you know, numbers point of view and everything. But talk us through the team evolution. I know we're sort of just discussing it, you know, yesterday, and I sort of always comes up in terms of like, you know, the number in your team's not really a metric for a success in business.
No.
You know, and you've gone through periods of scale and then downscale and back up again. Talk us through like what it takes to run, you know, a $30 to $50 million business, and sort of the team behind that, and the culture that you have to cultivate.
So I think as a founder, one of the most important things, and I was having this conversation yesterday, one of the most important things is repeating and repeatedly selling the vision. So for me, like last year, I had a big kind of depresso kind of blowout where I was really, really like down in the dumps and really, really kind of like dark in my own mind. And I don't think I was sharing the vision. I wasn't doing much. I wasn't kind of like motivating. I wasn't inspiring. And I was still working like a hell of a lot of hours. But I just had this like, I don't know, theory or belief in my mind where I was like, they'll be right. They'll show up. They'll do the work. They get it. You know what I mean? And founders need to like share their vision more, essentially. As an entrepreneur, I think you're strongly motivated, generally speaking. You know what I mean? You have this big ambition and drive that generally drives you beyond what most people would. And I think our view of the world like gets shared with other people, even though they don't share our view of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so I think in respect to teams, it's very important. Like, a couple of key principles that I've learned is who, not how, in terms of like problem solving. So always looking for a who that can do the thing that you either are bad at or you don't want to do, and they love it and they're better than you at it, and you can kind of empower and enable that person to do something that they're naturally in their genius zone at, and they can take it off your plate. And the key distinction is to make sure that you're doing your highest dollar productive activities. So that's really key. I think in respect to growing like a team quickly, I think like leadership team is essential. You know what I mean? Like, I think as I've kind of regrown again this time and gone from like 6 to, I think we have like now 36, 37 staff, it's more associated with like making sure that the key reporting functions of people in the team are clearly outlined. And it's like, you know who to go to. And then my leaders are extremely empowered with me and my vision all the time. And they are transferring that down through their teams to make sure that everyone is associated with the type of energy, the type of vision, the type of mission that I'm putting out. Because if my leaders are empowered and they're kind of like, you know, feeling the energy and they're like, this is amazing, let's rock and roll, but they don't, you know, transfer that to their teams, then their teams get kind of, you know, disempowered and they feel unmotivated and they're kind of just like, you know, kicking the can down the road. So having that big kind of like mission, vision, like the principles within your organization, like what you stand for, who you are, and like what you're actually doing for clients, I think is really key. I think some fundamentals around like what the goal is of the company is really crucial. I think people forget the goal. And I think for the most part, like the goal in any company needs to be to make money. You know what I mean? If that's not the goal, then the company's not going to be there.
And also, what is that end goal? What are we actually working towards?
Yeah. So I think some of those key areas are important. And I think like it's really challenging because there's a massive ego to having a big team and having all these employees, and I've got a massive head count, and I'm like I did that, you know what I mean? I had like a big office, and we had, I don't know, I think it was like a $90,000 to $100,000 a month kind of payroll or something. And
wow.
I was just like, and I remember like stressing out about it and feeling like really important because of it. And I was like, it was as if it was a measurement of my success. And I was like, what? This doesn't do anything for you. You know what I mean? You're just accumulating cost. You're paying people that you don't even understand what they should, like, just mess.
Yeah.
So I think fundamentally, like, having a really lean and powerful team is probably first things first, like a great place to be, and then really knowing all the specifics of all the roles yourself. So then when you do hire, you're like, these are the conditions that you need to fulfill in this role.
Yeah. And
having insanely clear initial conditions so that you give the next kind of role or hire like a great potential start,
Yeah. I'm a massive believer in a more nimble team, squeezing more efficiency out of it, and using technology. Not only that, but other suppliers and networks outside of your organisation to be able to grow, to make a bigger impact on whatever you're doing in business. You don't have to do everything internally and have it all in one roof. Like I think if there's a silver lining in what we've gone through as a world with lockdown, it's sort of opened people's eyes up that you can have a semi-virtual team as well as an operating team internally. From like a service business point of view, like what we do, we've gone through that similar process on a smaller level of going from small team to lots of contractors to then going all in-house, which didn't work. The payroll just was way too much. I think it was like 60% of our revenue was going to payroll, which is crazy. We've cut that in half now just by making some smarter decisions. Nice. And in turn, building up a good partner network, which was what I was talking last night about at the client and partner event that we kicked off for 2024. And growth plans to, rather than, I guess, going into a fast hiring method, but growth by collaboration, and being able to see who you can partner with, which is sort of what we do in some respect.
Correct.
And I think
the only caveat to that is just the attention aspect.
Yes, correct.
Like I've witnessed and I've seen, for example, like part-timers or people that are doing this and something else, the devalue of like that person, it becomes so clear simply because their attentions are split.
Oh yeah, it's a temporary position for sure. I mean, I was doing that part-time with a SaaS company in the city 3 days a week, and then trying to bootstrap GMS 2 days a week. And it was like an open discussion with my boss at the time that there's something's going to give eventually. Yeah. There is no way that you can sustain that, No. Waking up going, what job am I doing today? Particularly when they're two different things. Yeah. So I totally agree there. You got to have laser focus in some capacity when you are, using part-time and sort of casual or even external, agency support networks. But I think a big thing, why, your eCom's been successful, eCom Capital, and why maybe your team are believing in everything you're doing is that you're practicing what you preach as well. Yeah. You've got your own products now. One in particular that we're collaborating on is Oz Fishing Shirts. Yeah. You've probably got a few others there too. But yeah, maybe talk through, balancing eCom Capital, educating others how to build e-commerce brands, and then also managing your own products.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely challenging. And I think from the perspective of like, I was sharing it with the team the other day, and similar to what I mentioned around like, I guess like trying to rebuild some of the sentiment in the market and recreate some of the messaging around these like e-com gurus that do nothing and they just sell a random program and make tons of profit, because that's generally speaking what you can do. And at the moment, like I'm just like investing so much into the right kind of people, the right kind of products, like technologies and softwares, because I really believe in like the long-term vision, and so I definitely could take an easier approach and just like, sell a program and help people with coaching. But I choose to have, like, we have 2 e-commerce brands internally that we own. And from a first principles, fundamentals perspective, having these brands and then being able to implement, execute constantly on these brands and then showcase directly to clients, like the value is immense. You know, it does bring with it so many more areas of complexity. It's running like 3 separate companies. They're all completely different. They all have complete different teams, like structures, finances, like every single aspect of them is very different. So it brings with it like a lot more, again, going back to the attention aspect, the stress of having the attention of like, okay, so this and then this and then this and then different days of the week is like that business and then this business. So it's super challenging. But I think what I've done recently is actually bring my wife on, who she's like portfolio lead now of both of the brands. And so I think going back to that who, not how principle, I recognize that, you know, having leadership, you know, over certain areas of you know, each of these companies is essential, you know, and having someone whose sole attention and sole focus is on that particular brand is going to give it the love that it needs. And I don't want it to be like the, you know, malnourished child in the corner of the room that's getting no attention, you know. So it's definitely challenging. I think at this point in time, the benefits far outweigh the additional like work and stress and pressure. And when I look at the long term of what I want to do, it is that. So it's the constant kind of like acquisition, growth and development of e-commerce brands, exiting of those brands, and then just the repetition of that. And then, you know, providing like, whether it's to investors or particular, maybe retail or sophisticated investors, these opportunities to access, you know, early stage brands, buy into them, work with, you know, an awesome company and an awesome team, and watch a new brand kind of flourish and come to life, and then exit and then realize, I don't know, 6, 7, 10, 15x on their money. Like, that's what I want to create. And so at the moment, like, that's what eCom Capital it is. And the team of people that I have at the moment are all just magnetized by that vision, which is pretty cool.
And like, again, like one of my visions, or the way I think in how, you know, any entrepreneur should operate from a multi-business point of view. So long as I think they're interconnected in some sort of facet, you know, like I think if you're running, you know, a SaaS company, then you're running a cafe, then you've got, you know, another service business, like that would be, in my eyes, a bit of a head fuck.
Yeah. You're doing dog walking as well.
Yeah. And everything else in between on the weekends. But like I think Oz Fishing Shirts, you know, and your other product, you're able to not only cross-pollinate what's going on in that business, using it as a case study, you're, you know, obviously practicing what you preach. You're able to learn literally within that business to then bring back to your customers in eCom Capital. And it's so interconnected. And I think it's actually probably an important thing that, you know, you are doing that.
Massive.
Otherwise you tunnel vision and you're sort of only looking at it from an industry point of view. And, you know, we try and at least get our hands in a few different pies as well. Definitely. When we're advising our clients, and we work within about 8 to 10 industries. And I sort of only work with industries that I've either got experience in or I've got a severe interest in, that we know we can get results. So I feel, you know, that product versus educating on the product goes hand in hand.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think there's pretty strong crossover between the two. Like, we're doing a lot of info products for, you know, the brands at the moment to kind of increase profit margins and increase like the value proposition in the market as well. Obviously, like, you know, info products are great, but then if you can stack e-commerce and info together, there's like an even better kind of value prop there. So I think both of them, like you said, cross-pollinating, it just, introduces a different angle in the market. You become a little bit more valuable. Your point of difference increases. So yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if someone was sitting here listening and, you know, they've got an idea, or maybe they just started out, because that is the majority of people, right? Majority of people they either have an idea, they don't execute. They've got an idea, they execute, but they fall short and give up. Like, it's probably 90% of people that get into business do that.
Yeah.
What, you know, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give someone if they're like wanting to create an e-commerce store, or at least build on their idea in the next 90 days?
So I would, I think in that early stage, the main thing that is probably the most crucially important is just like it's just balls. Like, it's just courage. Like, you just have to believe in yourself enough not to quit. Because like my wife or any of the clients that I've worked with in the first early stages, like, the number one thing that they have that stops them is just fear. Like, they're just scared. Like, they're just genuinely like, what if I fail? Like, what if this doesn't work? You know what I mean? Like, what if I lose my money? You know, and so that's probably the biggest thing. Like, what I would say to begin with is just like, decide to commit. You know what I mean? Like, actually commit on the thing and give yourself. I have this, I don't know, affinity with like a 2-year time frame. Like, if you commit to doing something, like, commit to doing it for 2 years, and then if you study and kind of like almost break down the fundamentals of, you know, that particular business or model or opportunity into some of like the constituent parts, for example, e-commerce. Okay, so let's break it down. What is there? Okay, so there's the product development. Yes, I need to know that. Okay, so there's marketing and all its components, you know what I mean? Advertising, content creation, all those kind of key things. There's some operational elements in terms of like how you run and manage your fulfillment. And then there's like probably something in terms of maybe some team stuff that you might start to notice towards the end. Those are kind of the key pieces. So if you were to start, be like, okay, I'm going to commit for 2 years. I'm going to focus on the product first. I'm going to focus on the product and the marketing first as probably the biggest drivers of initial first sales. And then I would just like look to study each of those elements over like a 2-year period to make sure that like my vision is like planted and fixed. It's like you're giving yourself the best chance of success. Most times people like start something, they're like, I'm going to try this. Number one, you're already fucked. Right?
Or do it on the side and just not ever think that it's going to be a full-time thing.
I'm going to do it on the side, or I'm going to try and see how it goes. So fundamentally, like you don't see it as being an important thing that would ever be anything, right? So like you're starting with the wrong kind of like conditions or energy to even get any good results. And number two, you don't know like the information required to actually be successful. It's like you don't. It's like I'm going to the chess tournament, but I only know how to play like checkers or like badminton. And you're like, I'm going to win. It's like, you're never going to win. You don't know the rules of the game. You need to kind of like know the fundamentals and understand all the things that actually make up the e-commerce game. And then once you do that and you kind of isolate, okay, so what is it? Well, it's product development. I need to have a website that kind of sells the product. Okay. I need to know how to market and get traffic to the website. Okay, cool. And then I need to know the operational side of it. And it's like, if you do those things and you break it down and you have some people that can maybe support you, your chances of success go from like a random fly-by-night idea that hopefully I don't give up on because I'm terrified to like, okay, so if I spend time learning those things and I work with people who can help me with those things, that hold me accountable and hold my feet to the fire, my chances of success go up tremendously. You know, so that's kind of my approach to it. Yeah.
What do you feel some of like the hottest or just no-brainer products that you see come through? Like, okay, you're onto something there. What are the products that are working really well at the moment?
So I think I think from a marketability perspective, like if I was to look at products that have higher success rates or higher, I guess like criteria that kind of is a precursor of success. Like from what I've found, like my wife's brand was a brilliant example. Like she started this brand, and because of the nature of the product, meaning like this anxiety relieving dog bed that was like super luxury and really, really, really photographable, Instagrammable, right? And so what happens because of that is the moment people get that product, they want to photograph it and put it on their Instagram and tag the brand. So by design, one of the biggest issues that most brands have today is what? Content, right? So it's like
key.
Yeah,
absolutely
if you have like this like massive war chest of customers that literally every single day between 20 and 50 of them are sharing photos, Instagram stories, tagging, like producing content for you, you take away like, oh man, like the percentage of like of like stress as far as like marketing goes reduces right down. So if you can find a product that creates, and I think the best way to do it is like look at the user purchase journey. Okay, so the person has just received the product. What are all the moments or the wow factor moments in that experience from them receiving the product, using the product, telling their friends about that product? And then which of those moments are most impactful that they could maybe like share with friends or anything? Are there really even anything? Like, do they just receive the product? They're like, oh yeah, cool. You know, I think the other one was like that Frank body.
Yep.
Right. And so like that was a similar thing in the sense that like
everybody wanted to put that on their face and just post a photo and a video. Yeah.
Like naked.
Self-market.
Like get Frankie, and it was like sexually
dirt
marketed,
on your face.
Right? Exactly. And it worked fantastically because it created that virality content effect. So if I was to start something over again, I mean, my Bisou, the brand that I have as well, that has a little bit of that in the sense that it's such a powerful, impactful product, meaning girls use it and it removes their makeup with just water. And they don't expect it because they're like, even when I bought the brand, I remember like I first took the product out and I was like, this thing? You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, what? And then like, I don't wear makeup, right? And so like I wiped my face, I wet the cloth and I wiped my face and I had all this dirt just come off and I was like, I just showered.
Yeah,
how is this happening? You know, and I kept saying to my wife, I'm like, try it. You know, and she was like using the makeup wipes and she's like, I don't need that crap. She's like, I've seen those before. They don't really work. And she ran out of makeup wipes. And then so she's like, where is that thing? I'll use it. Took it out of the bag, wet it. And she was like, wait, what?
Yeah, wow.
And she's been hooked ever since.
Yeah.
And it's the same impression that like when girls use that product, like they are like, it's gone. like this thick what? And it's such a big wow moment. So if you can create that, I think it solves for so much of the marketing aspects, which most people today spend tons of money on creating. And it's like, what's the best type of content? Your customers talking about your product. And if you can solve for that and have a product that has some element of like virality, some element of like Instagrammable kind of features, or something that you can push into the market that solves that whole marketing game for you, you put yourself in a really strong position. Yeah.
So it's like finding a niche, having the ability for it to create content.
Yeah.
And, the scalability of it. But
the other thing I think would just be very, very, very specific.
Yes.
Like
niche.
the other, niche. I don't know if people see that, and people generally are afraid to niche down enough. I say niche because I've spoken to a lot of Americans.
Yeah. Is it niche in Australia, niche in America?
I think
or
so.
Like,
I think
or can you say it both ways?
Tomato. Kind of. And one of my clients, Tom, like he started this like broad, high level like pet brand, and I'm like, we need to niche down, right? And he's like, oh,
narrow down.
Yeah, get very narrow. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm not going to make money. Like, he was terrified, and we ended up going down into like one single dog breed, Staffies.
Yeah.
Right, and he was like terrified. He was,
that's amazing. I want to get him on a podcast. I think it's a credible example.
Yeah, and like we went from like struggling to make sales and like broad marketing to all these people to selling. I think he does over 300 grand a month now, selling like just Staffy products.
The amount of people I tell that story to as well, just as an example of how going broad can miss the market, and then how within that same industry, going more narrow or niche can absolutely explode your business.
That's probably key. Yeah, very, very, very good examples. Yeah.
So aside from obviously what people should be looking for, what are some of the red flags? This could be maybe from a personality fit or maybe attitude, and you've mentioned a few already. But what are some red flags that you guys would pick up before potentially bringing someone on as a client in eCom Capital?
Red flags.
Like if you're like, nah, that guy's just not gonna, he's not gonna follow our processes. It's always got a wrong idea, or
sure, Yeah, I think some of the red flags would be just like people that think that they know. You know what I mean?
Everything,
like, yeah. It's just like I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've heard this before. Yeah, I've done that before. It's like, well, show me you doing it. Like, where's the results of you doing it? I think that's a big red flag. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. Second to that is, I would say, if I was to look at the converse to that and look at people who are tremendously successful, the main like attribute that I've found that kind of really, really dictates someone's success with working with my company is commitment. And it's like this, it's like almost like this resolve that they have, that they're just like, I'm committed to this, and I just believe that I'm going to create an insanely high quality product that really solves a problem for a particular person, and they're just willing to just consistently chip away at it.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest things. I think people that have short-term kind of mindsets. We really work with people to help with that a lot, but short-term mindsets, kind of get-rich-quick mentality, like, absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
It's probably a big red flag. But yes, those are probably some of the areas that I want to push back on.
I agree. We get some people that, again, just think they've got this amazing idea and they've literally got nothing in place. They think they're going to change the world.
Yeah.
Or they will go through our process, then accept our process, and then 2 weeks later not accept the process because it goes by their way, not, it's their way or the highway sort of thing. Yeah. So we've got that a lot, and it's, sometimes they slip through the crack and you have to deal with them, but it's important to qualify 100%.
And I think also just like being... As a leader, like just refunding someone.
Yeah.
Just be like, I thank you so much for your business, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, see you later.
You know what I mean?
Money
like,
back. Yeah.
I just think it's like, you don't. I think as a leader or a business owner, it's like sometimes you feel like you're handcuffed to your clients in a way. And it's like you owe them, and because they've paid you, you know what I mean? It's like that weird relationship where you're like, you start to resent what you do because you do it for people that you don't like. And I think having that kind of like, it's your business and you get to choose and you get to say yes or no. And just remembering that, being like, no one's got a gun to you fucking head.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, if you don't like it, change.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you've hit that nail on the head there with, looking for, and the common threads with businesses that do well. And I see this a lot with you, the tenacity, and the discipline that you have from, when we first met to now. Like I've always seen, you've just got that ability just to be able to push on, and if things aren't working, change direction, learn from that, and then build onto that to the next thing. And some of the most successful clients we've worked with have that, and I feel that is probably the single biggest common thread, with the likes of, the G'd Up Clothing boys, with Jake and the transition he's had from when I met him to now. We don't work with him anymore, but just like, the day-to-day commitment that he's got with that brand and how much it's blown up. Simon at Culture Kings, when we're advising him and working with him before he sold out, and the amount of hustle and just work and dedication. Yeah. I don't think he even took to social media until now. He's sort of got some time because he sold out of it, and he's starting to educate back to the market. Even my friends at Who Was Elijah, who I recently interviewed the podcast, Raquel and Adam, they've literally entered one of the most saturated and hardest probably industries to crack in the perfume space, created a really cool name, a really cool pricing, unisex, and just the ability for them to keep going at it, because it took them years to get to a point where it started to boom, and now they're leading the industry and like the sort of the next sort of luxury style of perfume brands in Australia, if not the world. So it's like that tenacity and just the ability to, if you get put down, get back up. And I think that is literally the secret. It's not like having a degree or being having an investor. No, it's the ability for you just to keep pushing on.
Yeah. It's a hard thing. It's a very hard thing because it goes against all of the like 3 steps to this.
It really does.
You know what I mean? It's just like, if you just have a really, really, really like, I don't know, kind of FU mentality to quitting, and you're just relentless, and you're almost a little bit maybe stupid in the sense that you just don't want to be a bit naive. You know what I mean? You're just like, no, FU, I'm not going to quit.
Well, they say, they say that some of the smartest people don't get the opportunity to go explore their dreams because they're in high-paying jobs because someone else has employed them. Yeah. So it's like, you do not need to be the smartest person to run a business. And I think like a level of naivety going into something with the ability of calculated risk is important. Yeah. You don't want to be going like so risk adverse because you've studied everything, going there's a risk there, risk there, and not doing it because you're scared of the risk.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah. In terms of, I guess, successes and stuff like that, like, and even before we met, what do you feel the biggest challenge has been for you in business?
The biggest challenge, so many things come to mind. Jesus.
Too many challenges?
Biggest challenge. So a few things. So I would say, starting up, I would say not believing in myself, despite having plenty of reasons to. Despite having like heaps of like evidence and things that I'd overcome and things that I've done that like were quite, commendable or tremendous in terms of like adversity I faced and overcame them. So number one, I would say not believing myself enough and not like knowing with more certainty and more courage and more confidence that like whatever you get thrown, whatever gets thrown at you, you can handle. Like I think fundamentally that's probably crucially important. I think as you grow more, I think some of the bigger challenges would be like not being able to identify some of the key measurements inside of the business that are crucial for you to actually pay attention to. And I think that causes a lot of issues for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like they might think that they know their business, but they don't know like what are the fundamentals, what are the scorecards of each department that actually determine success, and how can I measure those things every single day, week, month, for example, to know that the actual health of my business. If I was to look at if I was to chunk that up to the fundamentals, I would say early stages would be, lack of confidence in myself, lack of belief, and just probably being too scared of failure, I would think. And then second to that, I would just say, not understanding metrics, criteria, like which levers to pull and then what happens, like if this then, you know what I mean? I think that ruins a lot of people and they give up or they fail and struggle simply because they're measuring the wrong thing. Yeah. They don't know like, okay, so these are the kind of steps you need to take to achieve this outcome. And if you actually focus on this input and less on that, like you'll be able to increase flow or revenue or growth, whatever it might be. So I would say those things, yeah.
What about personally, aside from obviously psychology within business and business itself, like challenges personally that you've had to overcome or sacrifice to get to where you are now?
So I think relationships is a big one, massive. Like anyone that's in business and says that anyone that's in business and they're serious about business, and has a good I don't know. I think it's extremely challenging.
Yeah.
Having a thriving, flourishing, healthy relationship is very, very, very hard.
Yeah, I think you look at any relationship, on a surface value, and social media is to blame for this. Everyone looks like they're in the perfect relationship or the perfect marriage. But, the same goes with universal laws and, personal development psychologist Dr. John Demartini. His philosophies explain this really well of like, you can't have happiness without sadness, the positive and negative of how everything is made up in the universe. And I think, to an extent, same goes in a relationship. You got to expect good times and bad times, and I think that's the same with business too. And yeah, the ability to be able to have some sort of relationship that is stable to obviously ensure that the business is operating. And I see people doing it within, like Adam and Raquel, husband and wife, it's like Raquel's sort of the visionary and created the product. Adam's the CEO, numbers and driving it and like scaling it from a financial point of view. I see them and I'm just so in awe of what they do. My parents as well, in awe of what they've done as well with having that, I think like complementary skill set and personality is a big thing. My business partner, Simon, and we're very polar opposite and we help each other in different ways that we can't otherwise do. Yeah. And I feel that's the same in relationships, let alone business.
I think it's, I think the reason that it's difficult in relationships is because the reason a business starts to flourish is because it gets a lot of attention and love, essentially. And it's like the reason a relationship stops to work is because it gets less attention and love.
Good point.
So it's like if you take away the fundamentals that need to actually support a good relationship, what do you expect? It's going to die. Yeah. I think it's very hard because I look at like my relationship and I'm like, like if I gave it more time and energy, it probably would be a lot better. So it's like I guess a sacrifice that people make or need to make or choose to make. But it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Definitely a challenge, and I think it's a constant as well.
Yeah, like absolutely. You got to work on it every day.
Yeah.
It's not like you even training, getting the six pack and going beauty. Got it. I'm gonna stop training now.
Yeah.
And it's just expect that's just going to sustain and maintain. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
That's so true.
Yeah. I want to touch on, because like a lot of what you're doing right now requires a lot of storytelling, and we all know today that wind back the clock 10 years ago, you could get away with posting a stock image or even just maybe some captions and text to promote yourself. Now the complexity of it with, animation, UGC, TikTok, Reels, the cameras, we've got walking videographers in our pocket.
Actually, yeah.
And, the competition and the ability, the need for brands to be able to, have that support to be able to pump out creative. Again, going back on the Who Was the Largest story, they painted it really well in that like they don't look at creative as like a chore. They document what they do and use that for content. Yeah. But I guess like through eCom with your clients and Oz Fishing Shirt with what we're doing, done a little bit of creative work on that together. Like what do you feel is the key secrets or at least the key strategies to consistently get the content out? And I know you do a lot yourself with your teachings, but how do you sustain all that across several businesses?
Systems. I think that's the only way. That's the only way to do it. Like I think if you engineer a system that supports the goal, you'll be much more likely to consistently kind of produce what's required to achieve the goal. Like I think if you and then I think it's like it depends on where you are. You know what I mean? If it's like you and your one-man band and you're just like running your e-commerce business or whatever business you have by yourself, like generally it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But like I think having some kind of like system in place for the requirements of content, the requirements of like new creative that the business demands, and then organizing and setting up some form of system, whether it's just like 1 day per week and you organize and you set your schedule straight in terms of like how many content pieces you're going to produce or source or get UGC create, whatever you do, it's like there needs to be some kind of plan, and one thing that I found a lot of benefit in doing is doing the hardest, most valuable things like between the hours, for me, this is just what works, between the hours of like 4 a.m. and like 9 a.m. Like I'll just get, and whether it's like writing a whole bunch of like content briefs, whether it's like reviewing like cash flows or reviewing like financial forecast, or like whether it's like the hard things that require a lot of like brain power and brain think, I'll do like straight away in the morning, because it's like you're mentally less fatigued, you have more capacity, you have more kind of like, I have more energy, and I just believe like if you can solve those bigger problems earlier, and for me like content has always been a bit of a problem, and it's now probably one of our strengths in terms of the systems that we get. Like I think we test about 60, 70 new creatives every week. So we're turning over like hundreds and hundreds of creatives every single month. You know? So
the amount of split testing we're doing on all those phishing searches and stuff like that, saying it. Yeah,
not possible if it's like, oh, we need more content, quick. So it's like the system needs to be.
You need more than you need, almost.
Exactly. You're always having like an oversupply, and I think that's the other key piece to it as well. Like if you were to like somewhat over project the demands that you expect, and like with the content perspective, you're always going to need more.
Yeah.
You're always going to need more than what you think.
Yeah.
And the thing is, measuring the cost of not having quality content is probably another thing that's really helpful. Like if you look at your ROI on content and you're like, okay, so if I shoot a really good quality ad and I get some really good quality content from creators and one of them actually like crushes, like you can take your ROI from, a 3x to like a 10x. Like you genuinely can.
Yeah, seriously.
And so it's like, okay, so what's the cost of me not having that? Okay, well, it's hard to get the VAs and it's hard. It's like, you can take your company from kind of profitable to wildly profitable. What the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? I think that's a key thing as well, is like the perspective. Because a lot of people I know, all of the entrepreneurs and founders that I know, they're like, oh, content, oh, I hate it. It's such a pain. So it's like, what's the cost of running your business with poor quality content?
Yeah.
Or it's not feasible. It's not commercially viable. I'll lose money.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it probably worthwhile dedicating some time to building a system to support your business?
And that's what they say. It's like there's only so much talent can grow a business without the systems and operations there. So that's like the talent doesn't grow the business. The systems and operations are there for the talent to then grow the business through the systems and operations,
Yeah.
You can't just expect to hire skilled people and go, you guys do your thing, you know what you're doing,
without
there being systems to automate and scale the business. It's just simply not possible. So
it's like a saying I always have, and I always communicate this to my staff. If they ever, which they rarely do now, if I ever catch them like complaining or having any form of like blame, I'm like, don't blame the person, blame the system. Is the system sound? No.
And we've been at fault of that as well. When things go wrong, we're like pointing the finger, but now we're like, okay, no, there's something that's on us. We need to fix like something to do with the operations or the systems.
Correct.
Otherwise, it's going to continue happening.
Yeah. There's 6 people that's gone through it, and all of them had the same problem.
Yeah,
but it's still the person.
Common thread. It's all your fault. Your fight. And then you got no business. But no, 100%. It's you got to have the right, and you got to update them too. I think like it's a hard job, man. Like to be able to build such a system. That system's then going to outgrow if you go from 5 to 10 to 20 people.
Yeah.
And you've gone from that to 60 at one point or even more.
Yeah.
So that requires very different systems, very different.
I think it's
processes.
more frustrating updating them than it is building them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like I'll sit there, I'm like, this is perfect, and then tomorrow I'm like, oh, this is redundant.
It's like, I always think of business, let alone what industry you're in, as a bottomless pit. You just can continue working on it, and it's never going to feel finished.
No, but that's why it's so good though, because I think about I was at my MMA coach, because I do MMA twice a week, and we walked in there and he talked about something about gambling, and he's like, do you gamble? And I'm like, I kind of do, but just in business, right? But I'm like, it's very different, because like with business, you definitely are gambling. You're taking bets on everything and anything that you do, but like there's a compounding kind of skill set that allows your bets to become more and more higher win probability.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between like business and like gambling. You're not having the same odds each time. It's like each year, hopefully, if you learn, your odds increase and your probability to win increases as well.
It's that incremental improvement every day that then compounds, right? It's like a bank account that's with a compound interest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Look, aside from the challenges, both personally and in business, what do you feel has been the biggest win? Because in business, when it goes great, there's no better feeling. When you have a great day or a great week and you just, the revenue's gone through the roof or whatever it is, but like, it's adrenaline rush. And I think that's what us business owners and entrepreneurs thrive off. It's like the drug. But what do you feel your biggest sort of win highlights been in business?
Yeah. That's a good question as well. I think,
too many to count.
No, I wouldn't say so. Like to be fair, I would say I've got a lot more dark times than good times. Definitely, which maybe is an issue I need to resolve.
I've got a good guy.
I would say wins. Like recently, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago. Like we were on like a team meeting, and I just was observing through like Slack the night before. Like most of the team were working until like 8, 9 at night, and I was kind of just like watching this and observing this, and then like in the morning, first thing, like there was like some of the team, they were collaborating and working in the channels at like 5:30, 6. And I was like, and then I came to our morning huddle because we have like a morning stand up every day. And I got quite emotional because I'm like, guys, I feel so grateful the level of commitment that you guys have. I'm like, you guys don't need to work at those times. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just sit here and I share with you the things that are just insanely exciting for me in the hopes that you pick up a fraction of it and you take it into your day. And I'm like, to see the things that you do outside of hours, to see the things that you do for our clients and see the commitment that you have for like my vision, which is really just a fucking idea in my head that I've just repeated enough times until you guys understand it. And to see you working and being that committed, I'm like, I'm so grateful. So times like that make it really worthwhile for me. And that brings me like an insane amount of like joy. I would say, I mean, yeah, right now that's a really big one. I would say like coming out on the back end of like hard times and building the confidence of I've fucking got this because I know the right information to control the right levers to dictate the growth of my business. I think that is a very empowering feeling, and that's a tremendous kind of like triumph. I think when you can like move through hardship and you can understand the specifics of what happened to you and why it happened, and then take those into lessons and then implement them and actually see the changes, and then you're like, wow, like I was on the brink, and then I learned from all those things, and now I'm actually like on a good run. Yeah. You know, that is a wildly thrilling experience, you know, to have that. So I think I think some other key things would be like helping my parents as well. Like I do like to support my mum and dad a lot, you know what I mean? And I think that's quite rewarding to be able to do that and to give back to them and help them with, you know, different challenges and struggles that they go through. Some of those are probably the biggest things. Yeah.
Well, mate, you should be very proud because, like I said, the progress in such a short time too. Like it's only been 5 years, less than that, 4 years if we count when we first kicked off that event. You know, like you're coming to me for advice and not knowing anything. Now I'm actually coming to you for advice now. You know, so it's awesome to see your journey. And yeah, you should be very proud of what you've built. And I think that's a big thing, like being grateful, enjoying the journey. You know, because there is. Obviously, we chase this goal all the time, like, you know, more revenue, more money, whatever it is. But yeah, if you're not enjoying the journey or just at least taking time to appreciate what's going on in the progress, then what's the point?
I think one thing to that I implemented last year, which really changed my happiness like a lot. Was I saying this to you yesterday at the event? No, I didn't think I was. Started last year, I was like super negative and super like depressed. And there was like a period where I read a particular book, and I'll share the book in a minute. And after that, I started doing this like really seemingly insignificant exercise that was just like at the end of each day, I'd do a couple of things. And I remember specifically around about like 3 or so months after doing that for a little while, my wife was like, "How's everyone on your team?" And I was like, "Oh, they're good," you know. And she's like, I was like, "Why?" And she's like, you stop complaining about them. And I was like, really? I'm like, and she's like, you used to complain about them like just about every day. Yeah. You know, you'd come to the end of the day and you just talk about this person, they don't know what they're doing, this person, they suck at this person, that. And you would be so negative. And so I read this book, it's called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And it's such a simple thing, but it's just like if you always measure backwards based on nothing else but you and your own progress, and don't look at the successes or measurements of anyone else around you, because you don't know what they're doing, you don't know like what they did to get there, and you don't know like at which stage they are at, so it's completely irrelevant, you know what I mean? And you write down 3 wins at the end of each day. And I was like, this is stupid how simple this is. Yeah. I started doing it and I was like, within like a week, 2 weeks, I'm like, kind of enjoy this. But the biggest shift for me that really made it such an important practice was when I first started doing it. I sat down in my bed at the end of the day, I pulled my phone out and I was like, what's 3 wins from the day? And at this time I'm like working like 14 hours a day. I'm dead tired. It's like 9:30. I just like worked ridiculously hard and I was like, I can't think of anything. And I was like, what the fuck is the point?
14 hours and you can't think of one thing.
I'm like, you did nothing good today. Why are you doing it? Wrap it up, you idiot. I was like, why the hell are you here? And it was so like in my face, I was like, oh, what are you doing right now? This is absolutely stupidity. And so like getting into that habit again for me was like huge, because I was like, that's a win. Seeing that tomorrow, doing this is a win. That's a win right there.
Yep.
And it sets your perspective around, like you because you are focusing on the evening of like, these are wins, your reticular activating system goes into search mode the next day for wins that could be made as a list at the end of the day. So it's insanely powerful. Like that simple exercise, I reckon, like created so much change in me.
I've got to buy that book. So Gap in the Game, it's called?
Gap in the Gain.
Gap in the Gain. Okay. Well, if I forget, send me the link. I'll follow up that on. But yeah, I mean, making your bag and eating breakfast before you leave the home, that's a win, surely, you know? Yeah. Some people probably don't even do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Got to celebrate the small wins.
Perspective, right?
Yeah. I mean, like people are on different journeys, right? So I think, you know, if anyone's listening and you're wanting to get into business, there's still the ability to celebrate wins in ordinary ways that might be otherwise very hard for other people to do. And some people don't have a roof over their head, so like being able to actually make your bed is a privilege.
Exactly.
So it's like don't compare yourself to others. Other people's wins are very different to your wins, and you don't know what is on the other side of that as well. And I think that's a big issue that I feel myself victim of these days, and it's pretty evident again with social media being the catalyst for this. But yeah, don't compare other people's wins to your wins. Yeah, and same goes for losses, and not that we're probably going to see them because no one posts losses that much on social media.
And the hard thing is that you actually know that everything's bullshit.
It is.
Like you look on social media and you're like, all right, so people, like, they're only posting the good stuff, and you know it, but you still measure yourself based on it. That's like
can't help it.
Thing, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, but that person has it. And you know it's a lie, and you know it's fake, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, I've got to go to that restaurant. I've got to go on that holiday.
Right.
Got to get that car. Got to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, that person's got it. I need it. It's a trap.
It is.
Yeah. Next level.
Yeah.
I mean, you've discussed some pretty big plans, and I'm across some of it as well. But like over the next 1 to 3 years, what are some of the big sort of goals for you and sort of plans for Sasha?
Yeah. So personally or business wise?
Both.
So I want to have a family in the next couple of years. I think that's probably the biggest change that will have the biggest impact on myself, my life.
So how old are you now?
32.
32, yeah. I'm 34, so that's in my thought process too.
Yeah, so I think that's a big thing. Like my wife and I have spoken about it for a while, and I feel like it's challenging because like I feel like the more deeper and the more ingrained you get into business, the more challenging it becomes. You know what I mean? You have so many things, you have so many responsibilities, requirements, and I guess like obligations that make it more and more challenging and more of like a I'll do it later kind of thing. So we've kind of discussed it, and I think in the next couple of years, likely have a family and start a family, which I think will be interesting. It'll have to be a lot of surrendering into I can't control anything. Yeah, which is going to be intense.
Fully.
So that I want to I've got some really big plans for eCom Capital in terms of what we want to do. I'd like to kind of grow and potentially exit the company in the next 3 to 5 years. There's a whole heap of software development and technology development that we're doing that's going to enable entrepreneurs to achieve more with less, essentially, and provide them with greater leverage, greater access to things that they couldn't otherwise imagine in terms of tools in the AI space, like suppliers and vendors that they wouldn't ever have access to, and I guess people as well within the e-commerce space overall as a greater kind of whole that they would never have access to. So those are some of the big things in the business realm that I'm looking to do. And then in terms of my e-commerce brand specifically, I'd like to exit both of those and re-buy or reacquire a couple more brands that I can continue growing and scaling over the next 3, 5, 10 years. So those are some of the big picture plans. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds exciting. Now in terms of that, even going as far as 10 years, what do you think one thing is, and this can be in e-commerce, that's not going to change? What's going to stay consistent? Because we always talk about change and this and that, AI, is going to revolutionize the world, but what's going to be the one constant in e-commerce?
You're going to hate me for this answer.
Yeah, go for it.
The one constant is that there's going to be change.
I like that. That's good. I wasn't expecting that.
I think it's hard because, and I think to that point, as businesses get more and more developed and more established, they become more and more kind of ingrained in their kind of roots of this is the way we do things, which fundamentally is their downside as well. You know, so I think being nimble and being sharp and being quick, being innovative, being super aware of like all the things in the market that are changing all the time. It's necessary, you know, and if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, fully. Yeah. I always think that, like, you know, I look back at the old days of marketing, promotion, business, you know, traditional papers to black and white TVs to that sort of stuff. And I always think of like, okay, what's changed from a marketing point of view? What hasn't? And I feel the psychology of, you know, solving people's problems and tapping into their emotions. And I reckon if you looked at advertisements from, I don't know, 60, when's been the first advertisement? I'm sure there's some out there 100 years ago. Yeah. If you have a look at those to now, from a copy point of view, you know, I reckon that there'd be some element of like similar psychology there in human behavior to say that, you know, people are looking to get their problem solved. And as a product, you need to be able to tap into that emotion to be able to solve it for them.
It's very true. Yeah. I think from a first principles perspective, I'd say, definitely solving people's problems. And the copy, like if you look at the OGs, Eugene Schwartz, like kind of advertising, and you're like, wow, like that still works on me now. You know what I mean? Like it works, even though it's displayed on paper and not like some visual digital ad.
Maybe
that's very true.
Maybe we'll do a 360 and things will start getting printed again. Just black and white, you know?
Imagine that.
Just go back to a simple life, please. Okay, now that there's going to be a lot of change, what do you think is the biggest change that's going to happen, you know, within sort of the digital product land world?
I think, be stupid not to kind of like think about the changes that are going to occur with AI. Like, I think with the Apple Vision goggles, what they're doing with those, like the advertising inside of those things.
That thing looks nuts.
Trying to get into so that, cool. Get into people's heads and like try and plant ads inside of like their own little digital world. Like, I reckon that is something that's intense. I think
it's that Ready Player One movie. You've watched that? Yeah, like that. It's happening already.
Like it's right now.
Yeah.
That, and I think the other kind of like shift I'm looking at is also how to inside of like GPT or any of the other AI kind of like platforms, how to rank or how to like provide kind of indexing as far as the information that's getting presented to users. Like, how do I actually inside of there where, you know, GPT is saying like, you know, tell me what the best kind of restaurant is in my area, tell me this, tell me that. How do I get inside of that and actually index as far as like search to control that? Because I suspect as it evolves more and more and more, there'll be more kind of like personalization with the AI, as in the AI will know the human, right? They'll know like what you like, what you don't like, and therefore like we will likely start to utilize that more than potentially like the Googles and stuff, because it's like it knows me more, it knows what I want, knows what I doesn't want. Can you find me this? Can you search for me that? Can you do this for me? And so being able to like understand that potentially and get in front of that and like advertise and utilize like those channels to sell people stuff inside of their AI little world, I think that's like something that I'm like, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's scary, but yeah, everyone needs to at least understand it in some format. You know, like it's going to be something that we can't deny and or control potentially.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
So look, running businesses, relationships, potentially having a family, like what's some of the, and I think like having co-curricular activities outside of work is important. It sort of, it goes hand in hand with business as well, and whether you know working for someone or not. What's some of the things you get up to on the weekend? Hobbies? What keeps you fit and healthy?
So I think MMA is something that I've learned a lot from.
Yeah, really?
In terms of, I think there's so much to it in terms of particularly like jiu-jitsu. I would say more than like boxing or like Muay Thai, I would say jiu-jitsu is so dynamic in the sense that like particularly around like how you enter is how you exit is so key. I think like surrendering into particular like rolls and moves around on the floor when you are rolling conserves energy and kind of like puts you in a position where you're more kind of like your enemy may not suspect what you're going to do. Like if you're kind of like constantly resisting, constantly holding, constantly very fixed, it's going to be very easy to like kind of like control and manipulate you because you're very predictable. So many lessons that I've learned from that overall that I think transfer to business. I think having like an offense-based mindset is also like one of the lessons that I've learned from there, like not waiting to be attacked, but being the first to strike. That's something I've learned from jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai overall, or MMA overall. that's been a big teacher for me over the last like 12 to 18 months. I think that's helped me a lot. And it's also humbled me in a lot because, like, for example, I could be having like the best day in business, and then I go into like jiu-jitsu, and then I like wrestle with like a 49 kilo kid, and he just towels me up. And I'm like, wow.
Humble pie.
You just walk out of there and you're like, thank you. So I think checking yourself as well, it's necessary, because I think like when you're in that like spirit of like big ego and you think you're untouchable, you're very dangerous.
Oh yeah, don't be too elated, because in one way or another, the universe is going to put you straight back down.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's been a big teacher for me. Golf as well. I play golf a little bit, not as much as I might like to. But
mate, I'm sporadic as well. Some of my mates are like that good that I don't want to play with them until I sort of get there. But
they're like, come for a game. I'm like, nah, I'd rather not.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
That's quite good as well. So those are probably the two main things. And then the other thing that's actually taught me a lot is, so I've trained and gone to the gym for like a long time, probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And I recently, as of maybe November last year, I decided to get a PT to train with me in the gym during the hours that I'm in the gym. I'm like, I want to maximize the output that I get from time spent, because I would be going to the gym and I had like an online coach and stuff that was like helping me nutrition and plans, but you just go there and you work through the plan. It's quite good. But then I decided to get like an actual in-person PT that I'm like, I show up at this time, we work through your program, and you push the living daylights out of me during the time we spent. And the ROI that I've got in that, in terms of just like not thinking about what I'm doing, in terms of like, what am I going to do today kind of thing. And then having someone to hold me accountable, having someone that like knows their shit so well, it's given me so much more perspective on just like coaches overall. And how I think like now I have like my nutrition coach, my PT, I have like 2 or 3 business coaches, and I'm like, I just think it's so important. What is the saying goes like, it's not the things that you don't know, it's the things that you know, it's the things that you think you know for certain that are actually not true. And I think there's so many things that
that's
like,
a good one.
You're like, oh, that's true, or this is the way to do things, or like, this is the only way to get the result. And it's like, how are you going to learn? You either like get a different perspective by someone else who's done it, or you like just eventually fail. And I think I've failed a lot. And I'm trying to optimize with the right people who can potentially give me some additional and better advice. So
that accountability, I think, is a good touch point. Having people in different areas of your life that you can't otherwise, maybe you're not good at it, or you don't have time to do it. I think it's important to have that surrounding support. It's not just going to be your team and your partner. It's going to be other people that can help you in physical health, mental health, financial health, etc. And having that SWAT team to sort of grow on is a really good analogy that I've brought up a few times in previous podcasts. So that's
very good.
Good point. Mate, last question before we finish up. If you could wind back the clock, Sasha's 18 years old, what would you say to yourself?
Don't use drugs. That's it.
Fucking good one.
Nothing else. Just don't use drugs. That's it. It's that'd be it.
Wasted
time, wasted life, wasted brain cells. There is no net benefit at all to any of those activities. I don't drink anymore. I don't think I'll drink anymore ever again. I just don't see the benefit of any of those things.
Mate, it's a big moving trend these days, and I'm looking at it not just from us sort of getting into that. I'm sort of mid-30 or early 30s, but I'm at a point now where I'm starting to make some decisions of it not serving my purpose at all. And you can get away with it when you're young. I think in your 20s, it's sort of, you get away with it. You can sort of get away with anything, bounce back really quickly. But when you start thinking about families, it's not possible to be able to do that and run business and try and stay healthy. Something's got to give eventually. So totally get that. And I think it's a good thing that there is a moving trend. I'm seeing people in my office that are 23, 24 and they're doing, 90-day detoxes and 75 hard and this sort of stuff. Like, I'm doing way more of those as I get older. I never used to. I used to be a heavy binge drinker. I still sort of do it here and there, but starting to just be like, that's not serving me anymore. You can't keep doing it. And also try and do the other things. You know.
I had some really good advice. One of my mentors said to me, and he said it in respect to staff, but I think the same rule applies for anything. If you find yourself justifying reasons as to why it's actually good for you, it's bad.
Yes.
So like team member, but they sometimes they're good in these situations, or they've got this family thing, they need to be fired.
Yeah.
Right. If you're justifying your behaviors as far as drinking or drugs, but I only do it on the week. Oh, it's not that bad. get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like anything that you have to like justify or provide excuses or kind of like back, it's got to go.
Well, they say it's like you only stop an addiction until it becomes painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just not admitting it.
Yeah.
Well, aside from that, ending on a great note of addiction, mate, it's been mate, awesome to see your journey.
Thank you.
Awesome to see you flourish in what you're doing right now. Super excited for what's to come with both of us collaborating on projects, and I have no doubt that you're going to reach your goals and continue to do really well in life. And mate, appreciate you and everything you do.
Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thanks, Sasha.